I think it's over to you, Mara. So I can repeat the question maybe, so you can have a fresh start. Can electric mobility contribute to the green economy transition? Over to you.
A lot, Thibaut, for the question. So it's important that mobility is really a crucial driver for development. It contributes to the SDGs, supports access to market, and as well to education, for example. Motorbikes are crucial for mobility in Sub-Saharan Africa. And today, I want to focus on Kenya. Here, there are 1.1 million motorbikes in Kenya alone. And most of them are not used recreationally, but they're used for transport and for employment. So how can e-mobility be implemented in a fair and a just way that people at the base of the pyramid can profit? This can be done through sharing economy business models that are a powerful tool to allow access to the state-of-the-art technology. We can use leasing, either daily, weekly, or monthly leasing, with low risk for the rider, or as well PAYGO financing, like allowing riders the motorbike access to own the bike at the end of the period. I originally had brought like a photo or presentation for you, so I don't know if we can show that, because I would like to focus on John, who's a motorbike rider and in Mbita in Western Kenya at the shores of Lake Victoria. Exactly, here you can see John. So John is a motorbike rider and he's based in the small fishing town of Mbita. In Siemens Foundation, our approach is to support local enterprises in proof of concept and in R&D technology. So the data I present here come from pilots from our implementation partners V2 and OPBus. Through cutting the cost for fuel and maintenance, as electric bikes don't have many moving parts and are very easy to maintain, the project here shows that we can double the rider's income. And taking into account that a rider, in average, supports 4 family members, that's quite a huge impact. Next slide, please. So for charging and battery, that's of course crucial as well for the cost of e-mobility for the rider, like for the acceptance of the technology and as well for the environmental benefits. So what are the business models here? Again, there can be like kiosk stations, off-grid stations, as you can see here in the photo, where the batteries are swapped and changed. But as well, batteries can be home charged or they can be charged through the national grid. So here in the pilot station of our partner V2, a battery swap costs between 70 US dollar cents or even €4.50 for the full week where you have a flat rate. So the drivers can change if they want to use the more, if they can decide if they want to use the more economic model or if they want to go for a flat rate and be covered for the full week. For the company, like in this case V2, they can make money from selling the energy for e-mobility, but as well for other products, as you can see, for example, for fishing lanterns. The transport sector has as well a huge CO2 mitigation potential, which of course is as well a contribution to a green economy. So the data we have in Kenya show that one motorbike alone can save 1.7 tons CO2 per year. And remember, we have 1.1 million motorbikes just in Kenya. That's a huge mitigation potential. In the end, what's important as well is improvement of air quality or as well other environmental benefits, because, for example, no oil is needed for electric motorbike. There's as well, like we heard a lot today about circular economy, and there's as well pilots in place to collect e-waste and as well pilot around second use of battery. So for green economy, we have an impact along the full value chain, job creation from kind of energy production until the recycling. And what's important to say is there are only 400 electric vehicles on the road in Kenya. So all this data is quite new. And of course, when you implement or if you test like new products, there's a lot of failures as well. So it's like important to say that those data we generate and as well these early findings, of course, they can be challenged. So sometimes the riders, they're towed to the charging station because they run empty, because there was no more battery charge. Or they're frustrated because they would like to have a huge charging network as the petrol stations at the moment represent. But of course, there are only a few swap stations, so they have to go longer distances to get a new battery. There's as well challenges about gender equality in the sector, so it's quite male-driven. User acceptance for some of the reasons I mentioned, is slow, and some people are not interested to switch because petrol-based motorbikes offer a good solution for them. And of course, we have sustainability questions about battery and e-waste recycling. So yeah, if you have more questions, Thibaut, happy to respond, and I'm looking forward as well to discuss more on the failures, but as well on the potential of the sector.
Thank you, Mara. It was really great to see all the, in a snapshot, all the different impacts you're trying to achieve. Of course, providing mobility solutions, but at the same time, contributing to social impacts like employment, and also you refer to the environmental impacts that are achieved. I'm sure there will be many questions, follow-up questions, but we have another expert who's with us today, and I will now turn to him. Alexander Corner, you are Program Officer at the Sustainable Mobility Unit in UNEP. And one of the issues we have discussed since the morning is how we can scale up important initiatives which are successful, like the one that MARAH just presented. So we would like to understand how can policy and regulatory frameworks can support the scaling up and expand this type of initiatives. Alexander, over to you.
Thank you very much for your introduction. And thank you, Mara, for your very nice overview of projects on the ground, projects you're implementing. I would like to provide a bit more macro overview about what is needed to actually get electric mobility in Africa, but also to get it to Asia or to get it to Latin American countries. Now let's focus on Africa. I think just as a very brief introduction, I believe we have prerequisites here which are actually very, very suitable for e-mobility. First and foremost, motorization rates are very, very low right now, but are growing rapidly. So if we want to achieve, let's say, climate targets agreed under the Paris Agreement, then we cannot focus only on developed countries. We cannot only focus on industrialized countries. We really need to focus on non-OECD countries, because most of the vehicles added between now and 2050, these added vehicles, they will be added on the roads in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. So now, starting from this very on-the-ground project-focused point of view, seeing the opportunities, seeing the challenges which need to be tackled through projects, through demonstration projects, I would like to tell a little bit more about the actual policy action which is needed. Can we please see the first slide? Now, policy is really a crucial element to get a new sorts of mobility, to get electric mobility to countries. We need to have a good institutional and policy framework to actually attract the investment, attract finance from large investors. Without a coherent policy framework, it is very difficult for financiers to take decisions and to really allocate money to credit lines, which can be used for local banks, for example, to finance e-mobility products, or which can be used for the setup of assembly and manufacturing companies. So now, when we're talking about policy making, we have a lot of questions to resolve. And for example, we need to think about regulation. What are the types of vehicles which shall enter the markets? What sort of batteries do we want to allow in these new markets? How can we make sure that the power sector is actually e-mobility ready? Is it possible to install charging stations? Is it possible to sell electricity? Is there a need for regulation to actually make it possible for EV charging companies to offer their services? As Mara already pointed out, what will happen to used EV batteries? There's a huge field of regulatory policies which need to be developed. Also, if you look at standardization, how can we achieve harmonization of, let's say, e-vehicle requirements, the charging hardware and the software between regions, between countries, between sub-regions, to make sure that we are not developing scattered markets. Yeah? So this all is very crucial right now, because there's a lot of companies on the ground which are actually working all together right now to already start some sort of harmonization process, because these companies are also interested in having sort of similar standards. Yeah? Next question is how to integrate different charging models. Yeah? And it's very important, for example, if you look at the 2- and 3-wheeler market, overnight charging versus battery swapping. So there's a whole lot of questions which need to be answered. Yeah? How can policy play a role to provide fiscal incentives, to provide monetary incentives to the introduction of e-mobility? How can we design policies, for example, to waive import taxation for the first 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 vehicles coming into a country? Or how can we incentivize the local value chain, yeah? By, for example, exempting the import of lithium-ion batteries from certain taxes? Yeah? How can we make sure that registering an electric vehicle is actually possible? Maybe there's other incentives to look into registration taxes, whereby we are going to a fuel economy or CO2 emission-based system like we have in many countries in Europe. So this is, again, a lot of policy work which is necessary. Local e-mobility policies, what can be transferred from European cities or from cities which have a much higher penetration of electric vehicles right now to cities in the global south. E-mobility finance, that's really one of the key aspects. How can we actually develop a comprehensive policy framework to attract the investment?
Thank you,
Next
Alex.
slide.
Yeah, there will be much more to say. That was very interesting. Thank you. We've slightly exceeded the time available for this session, so we'll have to end it now. I invite anybody in the audience who want to know more to connect to the EDD's website, and they can browse the session to find more information on your work. So thanks again. We will now have a short break until 12 o'clock, and we'll resume therefore in 8 minutes with the next session, which will be the lab on extractive industries and taxation. See you in a few minutes.